What are you doing, Holly?
So, this weekend I'm heading to Texas to watch the WBFF show. I've got a couple of clients that are competing and one of my good friends, Shelley's competing as well. So I'm just about to jump on a call with her and chat about her prep. So here we go. Hey Shelley!
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm great. I'm doing good. I'm just literally setting up technology as we go here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're good. How are you feeling?
I'm a little tired right now, but I think it's because I sat still.
Yeah.
When I get still, I'm like, oh, I could use a nap.
And I guess it just gives you time to start thinking about everything.
Yes, girl, the list is long of things to do.
Well, you can take a breath for the next 10 minutes. I'm sorry, so you've been just to kind of paint the backstory here, guys. So I've been ordering Shelley around all week to take 15 photos every day. She sends them to me, but she's a champ about it. Does the photos, sends them through. It looks amazing. So you've had a lot of extra homework this week, haven't you?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess one of the things I was going to ask you about this peak week is how's that been? Is it what you thought it would be?
I guess it's not really what I thought it was going to be. It's not, I think Monday I was pretty tired, but I didn't realize my carbs were going to go up as much on Tuesday and Wednesday. And so when I saw that, Tuesday it's physiological, sure, but I was very psychological because before I ever took a bite of food, I had more energy. It didn't make any sense.
You placeboed yourself into you're feeling amazing already. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that part has been good. There's been some emotions, enjoying the carbs, but then having to really, I told my husband, I said, I just had to close my eyes, trust Holly, and jump off that cliff.
No, well, you're honestly looking incredible. I just want to see if I can pull up some of your photos. So I actually think I can present it with you. So let me just fire them and then we can take a look. Where did I download them? Here they are. So I'm just going to screen share with you, Shell. One sec. Present your entire screen. So you should be able to see that now. Can you see that?
Something's coming up.
Can you see you?
I see myself.
Yeah, okay. Can you see this now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's what I wanted to be able to see. So I think, this is yesterday's pictures. And we can see here we've got your photos from the morning, which I asked you to take 30 minutes after eating. And then we've got your post-training images in the center. And then we've got your evening images on the right-hand side here. So when you look at this, do you see the changes? Because I see very clearly what's going on here, but what do you see?
I don't. That is why I have been completely lost. I'm like, what do you think, Holly? What do you think? Because the only thing I have to judge on is, I think for me, when I am flatter is when I feel like I'm progressing the best, because you feel
tired,
smaller and thinner. And so when I start feeling out, I'm like, oh my God. And the whole vascularity thing has just thrown me for a loop. I mean, it's 1 second, it's just,
you're pumped.
So full, and the next minute, it's where are they?
I know. And I mean, that's the crazy thing. I think a lot of competitors don't really understand, how sodium comes into play and, how it's actually a very important and valuable aspect, particularly for fitness diva, which is what you're doing. But it's not as important for some of the other divisions, like bikini, where the girls aren't needing to look as hard or vascular. But for me, when I look at this picture on the left here, so in the morning, I'm just going to blow that one up first. So you're really flat. I can't really see separation in your abs in the morning. It's because you've just woken up, you haven't got any fuel in the tank, you've been completely rested, so there's just nothing happening. So you're flat as a pancake. But like you said, you probably feel the best because you look really small in the morning. So that you can see you've got you're so lean. Like you can already see the separation in your quads here on this picture. But then if we go to the one where you've had your first meal, and I think you were doing about 55 grams of carbs before training, is that right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. So for this image, like you are just popping. You've got that pump. I think you've been having a little bit of sodium in the morning. So like once you get the blood moving and everything's kind of being driven, all the nutrients are moving into your tissues. Like everything is just on point here. Like your legs are so much more full. You've got the vascularity. I can see the separation here in your abdominals. Like it's awesome. And then like the evening photo, it's clear as day to me. But again, if you're not someone that's used to looking at this, like then you're a little flatter again by the evening. You've kind of been resting a little bit, or you've just kind of been, I think you've been doing like a walk or something in the afternoon. So
actually, I had just come from a massage.
Had you? Okay.
Relaxing. It was a relaxing massage.
Right. So I can already see like you're just a little deflated here. Like you're not as full through your muscles. You don't have the same vascularity. And there's just not that pump, which is one of the reasons why I think it's so important for us to make sure that, let me just stop presenting now, there you go, which is one of the reasons why, like on show day for a fitness diva, like we've really got to get you pumped up, a lot of sodium just before that 2 hours out meal, so you have that awesome fullness again. Leading into tomorrow, so we've got one more day before the show, like is there any like nervousness? Like, are you feeling stressed about anything? Like, what's going through your mind right now?
Right now, I think it's just getting my list of everything. If you could see my house, I mean, I've got my bikini stuff one place, my theme wear another place. It's a mess. And so I just need to take a minute and get my list together, get everything packed. You've given me a list for show day food.
Mm-hmm.
I need to go and get that and get like a little rolling cooler to keep all that in.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I get that done, I'll be able to breathe. I cannot wait till we get on the road tomorrow, because then everything except for having my hair and makeup done, for registration, it will be done.
Yes, so, exactly.
Yeah.
And your posing has been going really well?
It has. We just added kind of the theme wear posing, and I haven't had a chance to work on that yet, so I need to throw my little wings on and practice that for a bit. So
good.
That's probably what I am most nervous about, is so I don't get in my own head. Yeah. And I don't freeze, because when I'm posing and I kind of mess up, I'm like, and I start over. I can't do that.
I know, but like honestly, and I mean, so Stephanie, the current reigning world champ, is looking after Shelley's posing for her. And she's magnificent on stage. Like Shelley, you actually got to, oh no, you didn't see her live, but I'm sure you've seen her perform before, but she's just like a natural, like, you know, she just owns the stage. But that's the thing, like, you know, with the theme where you've got these ginormous, like, you know, wings, it's kind of not comfortable necessarily to walk in. So you've just really got to, like, once you're up there, you just go for it. And like, if you make a mistake, you just kind of keep moving, you know, it all comes back together anyways. So yeah. I'm so excited to watch you on the weekend.
I'm so glad y'all are coming.
Yes, us too. Well, Shelley, I think that's probably all. I just wanted to have a quick chat with you and see how you're feeling. And then we're going to get on the road tomorrow afternoon. So we're flying out from Florida at about 4 o'clock. So I don't know the duration of the flight, but we'll be getting in probably just around the time registration starts. So yeah, exciting.
Yes. I just want to say that, you know, for anybody, especially a first timer, I don't see how people do this without a coach. Now, my stress level has been pretty low as far as all that's concerned, because I've just pretty much left it in your hands. I've just done what you've told me to do. You haven't steered me wrong so far. Yeah. You know, just I don't know enough about what my body's doing to understand. Like last night, I told you, I was thinking different progress. You're like, what are you talking about? But anyway, your help has just been invaluable, so I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Shelley.
I wouldn't be confident going into this without you, girl.
Well, I mean, I've got a good canvas to work with, don't I? And a hard worker. Well, Shelley, I'll let you go. I know you've got a lot of posing and stuff to kind of get in this afternoon, and then I'm sure you want to kind of relax and get off your feet. because tomorrow is kind of the rest day. So I'll let you get back to it. But yeah, I guess I'll call you when I am kind of getting off the plane. I'll find out where you guys are at.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, we'll chat to you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today's video, I wanted to talk to you about peak week. We have obviously a lot of clients that are competing and a lot more people are getting into this sport. So I thought I would do a quick 101 on setting up for peak week. I do have quite a few videos on my YouTube channel already that kind of go into detail, I guess, about certain topics that kind of pertain to peak week. So for instance, I have done quite a few videos on sodium, how the body regulates sodium, and I guess its effects on total body water and things like that. So I'm not going to go into the minutiae of those specific topics this week since I've already discussed them. It's more of a general overview of, I guess, that final week kind of leading into show day, and then how to kind of outline, I guess, your approach on the big day itself. So on the screen here, I actually have one of my clients who's competing this weekend. Actually, I'm flying out to Dallas to support her on Saturday. So you can see here, I've kind of sent through a very messy looking table. Please excuse me. Hopefully if you guys try to replicate something like this, it's a little bolder than what mine is, but nevertheless, it gets the job done. So I think the first thing I will probably point out about peak week is that there isn't really any like magic tricks or things that you can do to kind of make yourself all of a sudden look 10 times better than you were like 8 days, 10 days out. Generally, we want to try to achieve the conditioning well in advance so that by the time peak week, the 5 or 7 days kind of leading into that show comes around, you're really just focusing on kind of filling out the muscle and trying to achieve that show level fullness. And again, that will kind of depend on what category you're competing in. But you want to have done all the work kind of in the lead up. So I think there is a lot of misconception about peak week is this like depletion time, or there's like this crazy depletion week, or there is like, oh, I'm going to fluid load, I'm doing like water loading, or I'm like cutting sodium. There's a lot of jargon, BS, I guess, fallacies out there that really have no scientific merit. So most of the work needs to be done on the front end, and I think people will often kind of place blame on, oh, you know, I mistimed my carbohydrates, or I salt loaded too early, and you know, the matter of the fact is they probably weren't lean enough to begin with. So, you know, tweaking some of those, you know, carbohydrate, manipulating sodium and fluid probably isn't really going to have that much of an effect, because you actually just still have too much body fat. And that is a sad reality. And I think a lot of judges will kind of fall back on, oh, you know, you looked a little bit soft today, you know, better luck next time, rather than just giving people the hard facts or the hard truths, which is you weren't lean enough. Let's try again next time. So we'll start, I guess, with Monday for Shelley. So just to give you a bit of a background, for her last few weeks, I'll just pull up her client sheet. So this is all Shelley's data that I collect on her every single week. So there's a lot of stuff here. So let me just scroll down to her final few weeks with me. So there's going to be a lot. Here we go. So if I zoom out, so this is her show week here. So you can see where it says peak week. And then this is a full week here. This is a full week here. So if we come across and have a look at her actual macro targets, you can see her protein in this column, her carb in this column, fat and fiber. So for the last few weeks, her average calories have been 1420, 1498, 1585. So they weren't too crazy low. She actually came in really nicely. So I got to give her a diet break here on this week, which is why you can see her calories going up, just to kind of get her back in a better state of mind, a little bit more energy, and then kind of come back into those last 2 weeks of her fat loss phase with a bit more energy. So if we take that week out, her average carbohydrate intake works out to be about 145. So I've listed what her averages were here. So you can see 145 carb. Her average fat intake for the last 4 weeks
has been about 42 grams if I'm being super specific, and her average protein intake has been 145. So this is kind of how I set the foundations for her peak week plan. So to start off, before we jump into the nutrition, I think the first thing I can really do is talk about the training, because it is a little bit shorter and less in-depth. So from a training perspective, generally, you don't want to fix what's already doing amazing. So, you know, if you've already been training 4 or 5 times a week, maybe more if you're a fitness or a physique competitor, maybe 5 or 6 times a week, you don't really need to make any drastic adjustments to your resistance training. So you can see here for Shelley, I've kind of given her normal training program for the first 3 days of the week. At the moment, she's been doing a 3 lower body, 2 upper body session. So I actually requested that she get her biggest, heaviest hitting lower body training program kind of out of the way on Monday. So the reason for that is I guess you want to make sure that you can give the body a bit of time to rest. The muscles in the lower body are like our biggest muscle groups. So it's important to make sure that you're not getting on stage having just done a really hectic, heavy lower body demanding session, and then you're going to end up looking a little bit inflamed on stage. So obviously with inflammation, there's always a little bit of retention of fluid, and we don't want water sitting in the extracellular layer between the muscle and the skin. We want all of the water on show day kind of inside the muscle to give it that nice full effect. So reducing inflammation is kind of where my mind is at, particularly when it comes or pertains to the lower body sessions. So she got that out of the way on Monday. I think she had a slightly lighter lower body session on Tuesday, which was kind of just more bands, a bit of glute focused work. So again, nothing crazy different. Certainly not working to an RPE of 9 or a 10, so working to failure. That is not in her program. I've kind of pulled it back to about an RPE, that's rate of perceived exertion of about an 8. So we're not going close to failure. So Wednesday was her final upper body session, and then for Thursday and Friday, we've just tapered it right back. This is a light circuit, hitting whole body, just trying to keep, I guess, the blood pumping, moving and transporting some of those nutrients inside the muscle tissue, which is where we want to keep them. Like I said, part of the, I guess, appeal on show day, what is a really attractive physique, is having all of that nutrient inside the muscle tissue, which kind of puts a bit of pressure on the skin and makes everything pop and look nice and full. So you don't want to completely rest, because part of the nutrition, which I'll go through in a minute, requires you to eat a little bit more. So the last thing we want is you completely sedentary doing absolutely nothing, because it's less likely that all of those nutrients are going to be then delivered into the muscles where we want them. So nice little bit of light exercise on Thursday and Friday. I've actually just asked her to kind of maintain her normal daily step count. In fact, I think I've reduced hers by a few thousand because she was doing quite a bit of planned walking. So I've just said taper it back. It's a little bit lighter on Thursday and Friday. And you can see here, Friday, I'm just getting her to relax. It's like 25 minutes in the gym, 20 minutes of planned walking, and that's it. Chill out. You've done the work. It's time to rest and let the body kind of, I guess, do its thing. So that's how I plan out the resistance training. For cardio, it's a little different, I guess. So previously, Shelley had been doing about, I think, 120 minutes of high intensity interval training, and she did that either using the Peloton or the Stairmaster. So I kind of reduced that as well this week. I still wanted to keep some of it in, because we also need to keep in mind I guess, calorie balance. We don't want her to completely stop, and then the calories that she's consuming actually end up putting her back in a surplus, and that could potentially risk putting on body fat. So I've still kept some of it in, but again, I've kept the harder hitting work at the beginning of the week. So you'll see here I've got high intensity intervals, and I had her do 60 minutes total. So it was about half or just under half of what she was used to doing. And then again with her steps and her normal training. So that's kind of it for the training portion. And again, the numbers and the times and the steps, that's all going to really depend on what the individual is actually doing for their, last few weeks of training within the actual contest prep itself. So you don't have to, these are not gospel. This is literally based upon what my client had been doing. So the next thing that I probably will talk about is fluid. So I have heard, I think the first time I'd ever started or contemplated doing a prep myself, someone had told me, you need to drink at least 10 liters of water every single day in the lead up to your show, because that helps you then excrete it all out, so then you look really dry on show day. And to me, having done biochem and organic chemistry and biology in my undergraduate years, part of me was oh, should I believe that? This guy, he does this all the time. He coaches a lot of people. Wow, there's probably some merit to that. But then, the more I thought about it, I was no. That's not how our, aldosterone and, the hormones that kind of control our body, our water regulation operate. So I've heard it all, fluid loading, cutting water so you look dry. I'm what? That makes absolutely no sense, because you want to have water inside the muscle tissue so it looks good and full. Whatever you have been doing as your normal throughout the entire contest prep, hopefully you have a bit of an idea about the normal day-to-day fluid consumption. That is what you should do for the final peak week. There isn't anything magic about changing your fluid intakes in this lead up. Like I said, if it ain't broke, why go change it? So for Shelley, she normally has about 0.84 gallons per day. So I've just requested that she consume a very normal amount of fluid. Now, people will ask, does coffee count? Does tea count? Do my protein shakes count? Yes, it's all fluid. 99% of those products is water. So it's going to be keeping you hydrated just like anything else, just like water. So yes, they all count towards your normal daily fluid intake. So it's actually really important to kind of keep that steady throughout the actual peak week and on show day. I think a lot of people forget to drink water on show day, and then they end up being really dehydrated, and they go on stage looking super flat because they've forgotten to drink, or their coach has said, don't drink anything. I do have one exception to when I would say restrict fluid, and that is purely 2 hours out from show. I start to minimize it to just sips only, because the last thing you want to be doing is when you're getting on stage is needing to pee. And girls, anyone that's doing a bikini competition, fitness, your bathers, your swimsuit, they're getting glued onto your butt. So you don't want to have to unstick that glue to go to the bathroom, because it's actually a pain in the butt to get it back off. It rips and it hurts when you pull it off. So you just want to minimize that. You don't want to be busting on stage either. So reducing fluid in the final 2 hours to just sips for that sole purpose. I'll get on to the specifics of show day in a moment. Today, or for this part, I'm just going to go through each day individually and kind of what I recommend. So the next topic, I guess, is sodium. So that's, again, something I've just heard everything, craziness, salt cutting, salt loading, just drastic changes to somebody's normal day-to-day intake. And again, that is not a good idea. You don't want to make drastic changes, because your body is constantly trying to keep a balanced, or your body in a state of equilibrium. So that solute load, I'm going to claim it, and I hope I'm saying this correctly. I think the normal sodium levels, solute levels, are about 0.35 to 0.45 micromoles per liter. If I'm wrong, I apologize. I haven't looked that up. It's just something on the top of my head. It sounds familiar. But our body tries to keep that in tight regulation at all times. So if you drastically increase your sodium intake, what happens is the body is going to manage that solute load. There is a transient or an acute increase in the retention of body water to help balance out that solute load. So you're going to also weigh more if you have a lot of salt in the diet. Now, weight is not really something that's relevant, I guess, on peak week. The scales is kind of tossed out, but from how we look, sodium and our solute load is really important. So I think the most important thing to remember is that it actually does have a positive role on show day. It can contribute positively to our vascularity. So again, we'll talk about show day sodium intakes, but it can actually have a really great effect on how we look, particularly for some of the divisions that call for that more muscular, vascular look. But throughout the week, what I do is I ask somebody to collect their last 2 weeks salt intake. I'll work out what the average is. So for Shelley, that had been around 3,100 milligrams per day. And I've just asked her to keep that pretty consistent. Now, the only thing that I have done here, you might see me drop it down to 2,700 from 31, is kind of to manage her overall solute load. So I've given her a really high carb day, 2 back-to-back high carb days here. So just to kind of help balance that solute load, I've pulled down her sodium by just a small amount. And to be honest, like, it's not a crazy amount. You don't need to go overboard. I've reduced this by about 30%, so it's not a significant drop. But generally, if you do anything outside of that kind of a range, your body's going to try and re-regulate anyway. So this is just a small adjustment that I like to make if I am going really hard with sodium. So that really stays the same for the rest of the week. And then, of course, show day is a little different. So now we'll move over to protein, carbohydrate, and fat. So protein and fats are kind of the two outliers that don't have, I guess, as much of an effect on our muscle fullness, but we do need to be mindful about total caloric balance. The last thing you want to do is, if you are jacking up somebody's carbohydrate intake for their show day, is that you don't kind of accommodate or look at their fats and proteins, and then they end up having so many calories that it does put them in a surplus, and then they actually start to put on a little bit of body fat in that final week. So that's not a good idea. So generally the recommendations that I set around protein are kind of just consuming enough to make sure that they are still preserving their lean body mass, but also being mindful that we are taking carbs up. Is there any wriggle room to kind of adjust that down just to keep their calories kind of at bay? So I've put it in italicized, just like what the recommendation is here. So I have a normal. Shelley, I kind of had her on her diet macros until Monday before show day. So I was just kind of squeezing out that last little bit of fat over the weekend and into Monday. And then I've started her peak week on Tuesday. So it was relatively normal on Monday, normal on Tuesday. And then I've dropped it down. I've times it by 0.9 approximately on Wednesday, and same for Thursday. And again, that is just managing calories because we have given her 2 higher days with carbohydrates. So I've just got some estimations there, and then back to normal on Friday. So nothing magic about protein. I guess the intention is just to make sure that the person is kind of hitting their normal daily requirements, and then that they're not losing a drastic amount of lean body mass in that final week. And keep in mind that is much greater of a risk in some of the competitors that are competing in divisions that require a really lean body composition. So like your figure, fitness, physique, bodybuilding, they are a greater risk of losing lean body mass because there's less caloric cushioning from, fat tissue available. So you don't want to go drastic and drop it too low because then they may, lose size or have a smaller appearance on stage. Now, over to carbohydrate. I guess this is the fun one, and this is the week that competitors generally start to feel great because they can finally eat a really decent amount of carbohydrate. So again, the ranges will vary depending on, I guess, which division you are competing in. Shelley is a fitness diva. It's quite a muscular division, but not as muscular as like a figure competitor, a female figure competitor. So I've gone pretty aggressive with Shelley because she does have a lot of muscles. So we took just over 7 months in an off season to really work on building her up. So she was eating well in excess of 2,600 calories for a good 4 or 5 month period. We reversed her out of another diet previously. She built so much muscle and she's dieted down and looks incredible. Shelley's normal intake was 145, so I've literally just taken that and times it by 2, and I've given her a little bit more. So that's kind of my approach for Tuesday. The reason I'm doing a front loading approach, which is adding the carbs on the front end of the week, is it's a little bit more of a safer strategy. There are other strategies where you can kind of carb backload and you do like an aggressive carb a couple of days before the show. But I find with that, particularly if you're working with somebody that is new, it doesn't give you any time to make any corrections. You don't really get a chance to see how the body is responding. And if you make a mistake, there's no time for making that back up. So I think front loading is my preference. I will still do it even with my more experienced clients or if we've done shows before, because their body composition is always changing. You know, they have off seasons, they put on muscle, and they probably look different to the last time that they dieted down. So that's, I guess, the reasoning or justification for why. So 2 times her normal carb intake on Tuesday. And again, if I was working with a male physique competitor or my bodybuilders, I would probably be pushing that up to 3 times what their normal carbohydrate was or their average for the last month. And again, that might vary a little bit depending on their genetics, how much muscle they have. If they're like a brand new bodybuilder and it's their first time show, I probably wouldn't be going as aggressive because they don't have as much muscle. So Wednesday, I'm kind of tapering it back a bit. I've given her 1.5 times her normal. Again, it's a really decent amount of carbohydrate, but I don't want to push too hard so that she ends up spilling over and we have a lot of water moving back out of the muscle tissue and sitting in that extracellular layer. So 2 days back to back, and Shelley was looking pretty awesome. She was getting a pretty amazing pump after her training sessions. Thursday and Friday are kind of swing days. And again, it just depends how that client is filling out. And again, if it's a division that requires for more muscularity, so anything above bikini basically for females, I will be a little bit more aggressive. But for a bikini competitor, I would be probably sticking to the lower end of this. They don't need to be vascular on stage. They don't need to have striations. They don't need to be as lean. So these loading protocols are a little different or a little less for a bikini competitor. So again, Shelley will check in with me on Thursday and Friday. I'll see how she's looking, and I'm probably going to use some of these ranges here. So for Friday, the day before, it's quite a big range for good reason. So 140 up to 210. That's taking her average, timesing it by 0.9 through to 1.5 as kind of the range. That's her carbohydrate. That's probably the most important one. And again, when it comes to fats, this is the last macro. Again, this is all about maintaining calorie balance. We don't want her eating too much, but we don't want her kind of still losing in that last week either. And another consideration for fats also depends on what their remaining calorie ratio was during the prep. So after we consider their protein, were they somebody consuming a really high fat diet and relatively low carb? Because you can prep that way, that's fine. Or you might have been someone that loves carbohydrates and you're not so interested in fats, and it might be a low fat diet. So it would be more of an adjustment for somebody in peak week who follows a high fat, like tending more towards like a keto diet, because the role of carbs does become important in filling out muscle in or on show day. So for them, we're going to see a drastic decrease in their fats because we have to increase their carbohydrate. But for Shelley, she was kind of pretty balanced. It was on the lower end of fats. So I've kind of kept hers relatively normal. So you can see there 40 grams, 35 on the higher days or following the high day, back to 40. Like, let's not overcomplicate it. So you can see I've put some ranges there. And again, that really depends on whether somebody needs the extra calories or they need to come down because they've been following a really high fat diet. So let's move on and have a look at show day. So here you can see I've kind of outlined 7 hours, 4.5 hours, 2 hours, 30 minutes before stage, and this is kind of how we break it down. So the first 2 meals of the day are usually for girls. We're kind of getting hair and makeup done. We're just kind of getting ready, trying to relax, and these aren't crazy unique meals. It's literally just trying to match your normal day's energy requirements or your macro targets. So For Shelley, like I said, her protein has been sitting consistently at about 145, so 25 grams of protein. It's kind of on the lower end for what I would recommend for a meal, but protein doesn't have a huge role to play on show day. This is just kind of keeping it like a complete meal for her to have in the morning. So I've recommended that she have some plain grilled chicken breast, and then for her carbohydrate, I've suggested that she have some Rice Krispies or Rice Bubbles if you're in Australia, and then some fats as well. And I have recommended that she use the Justin's Lane Classic Almond Spread. So that's her first meal. Sodium, I'm just keeping it kind of within her normal sodium range. So she has normally 5 meals per day, and I've just kind of evenly distributed that. So her first meal's a normal amount of sodium, so 300 to 400 milligrams. And then same for a second, I've just repeated that second meal. The most important meal is this 2 hours out meal. That's kind of giving the body time for digestion and for the carbohydrate to actually kind of hit the muscle tissue, and same for the sodium. So again, a regular amount of protein, 55 grams of carbohydrate. So we're trying to kind of fill out that muscle tissue. So at this point, she's up to 115 grams of carb. And in her previous photos where she's been checking in with me throughout the week, this was where she was kind of looking great immediately after like a bit of a pump up workout. So I'm going to keep her there, and I'm giving her slightly higher fat, and that's going to help again fill her out and make her look amazing on stage. And this is also the really high sodium meal. So this is about, I guess, half of her normal day's sodium intake. So 1250 milligrams. So I've actually selected some specific products here that I know are unflavored. They're not going to mess up a GI. There's no random seasonings or anything on it, but it's very high in sodium, and it's, I guess, an equated. It's been measured. It's on the label. So there's no, it kind of takes away the guesswork. And then for her carbohydrates, again, I'm keeping it really simple. I'm going to go in with a glucose syrup tablet or a squeezy gel. A lot of competitors I see using honey, and that's a FODMAP. And because you're having such a high amount of it, my biggest concern for using some of those FODMAP type carbohydrates, so things that are high in fructose, it can really cause a lot of GI pain for some people. So I'd use glucose instead. The body has a hard time digesting products that have a greater ratio of fructose than glucose, and that is what actually ends up causing a little bit of irritability in the large colon. So glucose, I look for lollies, candies, anything that is non-fructose containing and primarily sucrose, or at least it has an even amount of glucose to fructose. So there you go. So her, again, her fat source is going to be some almond spread, and the sodium is going to be met by the turkey here. So she's going to go and get pumped up at that point. She's going to look incredible. And then 30 minutes before stage, I'll probably be checking her, seeing how she's looking. And if I think she's looking a little flat still, might get her to have another 20 grams of carbohydrate, a little bit more fat, a little bit more sodium, just to really puff her up. But if she's already looking great, I'm going to leave that as is. So you may be wondering about water on show day. So I generally recommend in the morning having about 150 mils kind of with your first meal, and then just sipping somewhere between 200 to 250 mils kind of between your food. That's pretty much it. There isn't a lot else to kind of talk about. The reason I give specific food recommendations is because it is Shelley's first time competing, and I kind of wanted to take the guesswork away from trying to find foods that are low FODMAPs, that are low irritants, that hit the sodium targets and are going to help her kind of achieve her macronutrient distribution. So that's show day. Low fiber the day before, so that there's no abdominal distension. Very low fiber again on show day as well. And that is pretty much it. If I've missed anything, please let me know. If you have any questions about show days, or maybe you're trying to peak for a photo shoot, you just want to look your best, you are absolutely welcome to leave me a comment below. I do try to jump on and respond to all the comments that come through. So I am super pumped to be able to share this with you. I hope it has helped. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time.
This is how we do it.